We're going to go ahead and get started and start the recording. Can everybody see my screen okay?
I can, but I think everybody's muted, Julie.
Okay, yeah, they can type in a chat or in the question. They can chat with me throughout the day today too, so I can see that as well. So perfect. We're going to go ahead and get started. We have a very full class of content today. So I'd like to go ahead and get started. If you have any questions or want to chat, have anything, go ahead and post that on the right if everybody can see that in their questions and in the chat area. Perfect. Thanks, Cheryl. Thanks for polling in there. I want to just get started today. Brian and I were talking about what are really the goals for 2015, and I know that Kathy is also working with you guys and setting up some private meetings and personal meetings to really make it a successful year for you. And so we are going to go over the actual business plan and how to do that. That's kind of the second part of our hour today. The first part is looking at the DISC. Did anybody, or were you guys able to complete the DISC? I know that we had sent that out as well. I hope some of you were able to do that. Oh, sorry. I said Kathy, didn't I? It's Karen. I'm so sorry. My brain. So anyway, yeah, so we did the DISC. A lot of people did the DISC profile, and awesome. Jody, you did it. Perfect. So you probably have all the answers to what your personality is. If you didn't know it before, you probably know it now, right? But if you didn't do it, don't worry. We're going to do a high-level overview today, and you can go back and do it and see why or how it fits into your goal setting for this year. So perfect. So let's start with the DISC. What is the DISC? The DISC is basically a series of questions that you answer, and it gives you the results based on what your natural state is and what your adaptive state is. And DISC basically stands for D, decisive, I, interactive, S, stability, and C, cautious. And it really is your preference for problem solving, interacting with others, pacing yourself, and also procedures, standards, and protocols. So once you get through this, we'll know if you're a rebel or not. No, I'm just kidding. So we want to talk a little bit about the D first. And so with the D being decisive, and for those of you who took it, great. If you didn't, again, we'll send it back out to get back. Cool, Cheryl, yes, good. So we've got the D. If you tended to be a higher D, you tend to solve new problems very quickly and assertively. You're going to actually see a sample of a very, very high D in just a few minutes. High Ds take an active and direct approach to obtaining results. The only issue is that sometimes they may take the risky side and the wrong approach. So it might be an incorrect solution, but they're very decisive. A lower D, we being me, tends to solve problems in a more deliberate and controlled, organized manner. Again, the problem with me is I may overthink things, and I may not move fast enough for the high Ds in my life. So it's just kind of you can kind of see the real valley of working with a high D or working with a low D, and why it's important to know who you're working with and how they rank on that scale. I would be interactive, so if they are a higher I, they tend to meet new people, and the key is that they treat new people just like their best friend. It doesn't matter if they haven't met them before, they're talkative, they really are gregarious and interactive, and they just are real open. And lower I's, they usually tend to be a little more controlled and quiet. Very talkative, still very interactive within their close associates and stuff, but they're reserved with people they've just recently met. And then we have the S, which is stabilizing. High S, they tend to be more of a preferred, controlled, deliberate, predictive environment. They do show a lot of security in a work situation, disciplined behavior. They have a very good sense of loyalty to a team or organization. A lower S, they like a more unstructured work environment, something that's more flexible and dynamic. They value freedom of expression and the ability to change from one activity to another. They become bored pretty easy. And then C is cautious. And a high C, they tend to adhere to the rules, standards, procedures, protocol, etc. Lower C's, we're more rebels. We like to think of rules and SOPs as suggestions. And sometimes with us, the rules are meant to be broken to obtain the necessary results. The end justifies the means. So those are just kind of, again, a high-level overview. And don't worry, I will be sending this out for everybody too, so you can see these and get the high-level overview as well. Because I think Cheryl had even said that the actual report that you get when you take the DISC is quite lengthy, and so this is, again, just a very high-level overview. So what I'd like to do is I would like to show Brian and myself. So on the left is me, on the right is Brian, and we both took the DISC, or have taken the DISC, and we both very much practice using the DISC in both our goal setting, our personal life, our business life, etc. This is what's called our natural style. Okay, and so our natural style is what we behave when we are in our most natural setting, not when we're under stress, not when we are being observed, etc. This is just how we behave most of the time. Now, Brian, as I said, we were going to look at a high D. I don't think I've ever seen 100, to be honest. Brian, I think you topped the charts with the D and the I from what I've ever seen. So good job. High achiever right there. And so your natural style is you're very high D, high I, lower S, lower C. You can see mine is pretty much a low D, medium I, very high S, and a medium C. And the reason why this is important to realize is because with Brian being a high D and I, it really complements my lower D and I. My high S complements his lower S. And so a lot of great working relationships have complementary DISC profiles. So you will see that. It's nice to have your partners. I know that Brian uses this quite a bit in the hiring process at Kalamazoo Mortgage to make sure that the person is actually a good fit, not just a nice person. Right, Brian?
Yeah, and I think what's important to realize is, like, there's no right or wrong answer on this. And, like, how we really use this the most is, like, with the way that I've always been wired is I get so where I almost have to force myself to be detail oriented, and with most of our loan officers, they fall into that DI role. So it's, since naturally it's a very detail oriented position, but we're the people that are the best at going out and talking to people and meeting new people, or not the best is the wrong word, that are usually most apt to do so. Are the ones that care the least amount about the details. So, I mean, we've had to implement checklists, and, you know, when we do it, first we had written procedures, but then they wouldn't read the procedures. So we had to, like, basically simplify it, you know, so it could keep their attention span. You know, that's why we've implemented a lot more checklists than actual written procedures like we used to have. And it's worked out real well for those people.
And another thing, too, is when communicating, I think it's very important to realize this, too, because one of the things I know about Brian is if I send him an email that's very verbose and just has a ton of words in it, he's not going to read it. And so for Brian, it's better if I just bullet point. Like, no, here's what I need. Boom, boom, boom. What's that?
I read the subject lines.
Yeah, well, subject line, yeah. So that's why I try, my subject lines may be a paragraph, but at least I know you read it. No. But again, it's very good to know how to communicate. And Brian, you also told me that recently you went back to a DISC profile on one of your employees, and you realized, man, maybe they're not in the right position for them. They're great, they're a great employee, but what if we kind of hybrid them into this other position? And it wound up working out really well once you looked at her DISC profile and found a good position for her, because she can put your checks and balances in place to make sure that you and the other high obtainers or high achievers in your office actually adhere to those checks and balances that we need in the mortgage industry. So perfect.
Yeah, we actually we reshuffle our staff around this through. I mean, our coach helped us do it, but instead of going back and rewriting every process that we had, it just made sense to shuffle the roles around to have better alignment with this. But
yeah. So now what I want to do is, this is, again, remember, this is Brian and my natural style. So this is how we behave in our most natural element. Now, here is the next one, if I can get to it here. Here is our adaptive style. So the adaptive style is when is really how we behave when we feel we're being observed or when we're under pressure, when we're under stress. This style is less natural and less authentic for us. Okay? So we forced to adapt to the style. When we're forced to adapt to the style for a long time, meaning wrong job, wrong fit, or right job, wrong fit, or whatever it is, you become very stressed and less effective because this is not naturally where we fall. So again, if you look here, I tend to be middle of the road on my adaptive style, which is, I mean, that's good because I can adapt to working personalities, and I do work with very, very diverse personalities, and so that's really good. But look at Brian here. He comes down in his D, way down in his I, because if you remember, he was a 99 and a 99. He comes down in his S, and he comes down a little bit in his C. So everything for Brian is suppressed when he is adapting, which, I mean, it makes sense, right? It does make sense, but what this tells me is with his adaptive personality, he needs those defined lists because when he's under stress, control and impulsive decision-making may suffer, but in his natural environment, when he works with those defined lists to reach his goals, his adaptive self will then adhere to those and he'll still reach those. So whether he's working in his natural state or adaptive state.
Yeah, and even more important than those checklists, like for the purposes of the drill, when we go through like the business planning for 2015, not only do we have checklists for our procedures, but time blocking is absolutely critical for me because of that. Like when I get stressed, I go off my schedule. So like my schedule has to be so regimented, and I got to be almost like, I mean, I always say, you got to defend your calendar, where I won't let my staff schedule certain things during certain times if it falls into like the times that I spend what I call my MMA time, my money making activity time,
right?
Or we often call it green time. So I mean, they know that. I mean, my support staff is not even supposed to be emailing me during those hours.
And what we're going to do,
I've got to force myself to do that.
And that's important that you recognize that. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to look. Our next couple of slides are going to be how to use your D, I, S, and C rankings to actually goal set. And one of those things is time blocking. And taking a big goal, breaking it down into smaller chunks, and working on it daily. So we are going to talk a little bit about how to take all this knowledge of when you get your disc and apply it to your goal process or goal meeting process. So this I wanted to show you too. Again, for Brian, a lot of the words, all the detail of this, he likes kind of a overall picture, and so I think, and I do too, so I think that this gives us a really good picture. What you have here are words that describe the D, I, S, and C, and you got the high D, the low D, high, etc. This is our natural style. Brian is the red line, and I'm the purple line. And this is about where we fell, and this is our natural style. So our natural style on the D's, very compatible or very complementary, interactive, complementary, stabilizing, complementary, and cautious. I do find that we are more close on our natural style. And I'll be honest, people who know me, they will give you these words like inquisitive, responsible, enthusiastic, I've been accused of very much, social, independent, rebellious. I personally, if I had to describe myself, I'd describe myself as a little more on the lower end of the S, but it's funny that my natural style comes out on the high S. I find that a very interesting study. And then if you look here, we've got our, whoops, excuse me, let me go back up. Oh, sorry, it went down. Here's our adaptive style. So what I did is I brought our adaptive style and again, benchmarked it on the words. So I come up a little bit, Brian comes down a little bit in the D's. We're very close in the I's. We're both enthusiastic. We're both sociable, inspiring, etc. Brian drops down to more the spontaneous and impetuous, and that's where his time blocking comes in. And I'm more consistent and steady. And then, of course, in the C's for protocol and standards, we're kind of right together on that one as well. So I just find that this is a real good benchmark to do for yourself when you do take your disc, is to kind of see where you fall and see if some of the, your friends, your family, your coworkers, etc., have described you with some of these words here as well. Again, as Brian said too, I want to stress there is no right or wrong answer. It just is. So, if you, like me, I think of myself as more of a low S, but I got middle of the road to a higher S. That's not a wrong answer. It's just interesting how you see yourself. So again, it's a study in interesting, not necessarily right or wrong. So please keep that in mind. So what I wanted to talk about a little bit about what we alluded to earlier, and I know I'm going through this fast, so if you do have questions, please let me know. Again, you're going to get all of this detailed information sent to you, as well as we are also recording this, and so we will have that recording available for everybody as well. But on this, so how we use our DISC profile for goal setting, which is what we're going to go into next. With the D, you have a very decisive personality. So, and I'm just simply going to read this, is you're hard-charging guys and gals who just want to get the stuff done. Check it off, do it, get it done. Great at setting goals, but may run into problems when they lay out the plans to achieve the goals. So that's one of the things that Brian was alluding to earlier. Checklists, time blocking, making sure you're staying focused, making sure you're staying on task to get these great goals that you set for yourself done. So if you're a D personality, break those goals down into smaller milestones with a time frame for each one. Stay focused on setting up reminders on your phone, on your calendar. Use checklists, use time blocking. Make sure every day you visit your goals. And Brian talked a little bit about his MMAs, his money-making activities. Those are very, very important. Also reaching your goals, because part of your goals are going to be money making, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later too. So that is a D personality and how to start the year off right. So Brian's a high D. This one would be for him. So for the I, the interactive personality, the I personalities are fun-loving, people pleasers. They love to set goals and dream up what they want to achieve. Love, love, love that. However, sometimes it gets lost because they're busy working at people-pleasing. So if you are a high I, list your goals on paper and prioritize the ones that are most important to you and stick to that. I don't know if you guys remember, I'm probably aging myself here, but I used to use a Franklin planner, and they did have a very good system of like the A1 or A plus goal and how you can achieve that and prioritize that. And that's how I use my prioritization on my task lists. So I do go through and do which ones are most important to me. Then once I have that list, create the specific plan that details how you're going to reach each of those and in what time frame. A lot of I's will set their time frame like they want to achieve it by April and work back to what they have to do intermittently until that April goal. So making sure that you can track those, the progression is huge, and checking off those milestones. For the S, the stabilizing personality, the S personalities, they're relationship people. Goal setting means that change is coming, which causes tension for the S people. They don't like change. Now, okay, that would be very true probably for me more on the S. I said that I was a high S. I would think I was a lower S, but I stress or change causes me a little bit of stress, I go with the flow because I have to. That's more my adaptive personality. So if you are an S, focus on the benefit of reaching the goal and how it will help you and others. What do you want to do in 2015? Focus on your goal, the benefit of reaching it, and what it will mean for you, your family, your business once you get there. It's okay if you take longer than most to think it through. But remember, you don't want to procrastinate, which is a little easier for the S because, again, we don't like change. Change is coming. Change is goals, and we may have to shuffle up our day a little bit. And so we just want to make sure that we're cognizant of that. Again, a good thing for S is to set the date where you want to meet the goal, work backwards with the daily plan so that way you can achieve it. And then, of course, we've got our C's, which is more the cautious personality. I'm a lower C. I'm more, about 40%, but the C's personalities are very focused on procedures, making sure things are done the right way. Don't have a problem with setting goals, but they do need help prioritizing because a C wants to accomplish it all. If you're a C, focus on the most important goals for you. You want to create a detailed tactical plan to take you there, but play off your strengths. And as you begin the process of working on your goal, remember why it's important and who is affected by it. Do not get so focused on the process that you lose sight of the why. So that is goal setting, how you use your DISC personality. Again, a very high-level overview. Does anybody have any questions at this point? We're going to move on to the actual business plan and looking at that. So let me go to here. Now, Brian, you and Karen have sent this out to everybody, right? Or are you going through this in your meetings with them?
We sent it out. I put it on Yammer, and then we're also, when we meet, we'll go through it.
Perfect. Okay. So this is a 36-page detailed business plan. And it's specific for real estate. It's through Market Leader Tools from Trulia. There are a lot of other business plans out there, by the way. I know Coldwell Banker has their own. There are other broker houses that have their own. There's other independent ones, etc. But this one is one that Brian and I were looking at, and it simply, seemingly, was the most comprehensive one that we found in Karen too, and that's why we decided to focus on this one. So
this was like when I was looking for them online, and through coaching and whatnot. This was the best one that I was able to find, and then I compared it to the one that we had through Coldwell, and it looked like it had everything in there with the exception of on Coldwell they had one the one page I like. I think I talked to you about that was the current, or they had like a side by side where they had a where are you at now versus where do you want to be.
Yep.
Where it tracks the activities, and the only thing that concerned me about that, about scrapping this plan just for that one page, was that I don't think that, based on what a lot of people have told me, that those activities were actually tracked. So I thought that this one had more content that they could use than the other one.
I agree.
Plus, it actually had some forms they could track.
And I absolutely agree with you. The other reason why I like this is it also embodies the DISC profile. So just for you guys who are on the call, that's why we put them both together and are having you do the DISC personality as a test as well as this, because it kind of embodies both of them. So that way you identify your strengths, you know where to focus, you're setting the realistic goals, and you know how to achieve them, as well as, like Brian said, the forms and the calculations and all that other stuff that will take you there. So let's go ahead and go through this, and again, we'll make sure that everybody has all of these items available to them. And this is, as I said, it's a 36-page plan to go through, and so here's just a little content. It's a build a bigger, better you. You guys can all read that. But one of the things that I wanted to focus on is this look back at your 2014 year in review. And the really big focus for me is where did the business come from in 2014? And you want to take stock on this. And they have this little chart here to put the address, the sales price, the source, which we'll look at. Was it a buyer? Was it a seller? Was it a community, property type, etc.? Where did your business come from? Because where your business comes from is where you naturally focus on. And if your business came from your sphere of influence, then that's where you're going to want to focus on for 2015. But if you've already tapped that market, you need to look at the other sources that you may have at your fingertips so that way you can grow your business in 2015. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So take a look at where your business did come from. And then here, this is what I was saying, the sources of business. And I think that this is a really good tool. And we're going to actually talk about leads in just one moment. But I wanted to focus here because we know that in real estate, your business source comes from many different areas. Referrals, repeat customers, open houses, relocations, expired listings, door knocking, floor calls, right? I always see on Yammer everybody is volunteering for that floor call time, which is great. Those are live bodies calling in and wanting information. Networking, social media, etc. So your sources of business is very important. However,
is there anything on that list? I'm sorry to interrupt you, Julie. Is there anything on that list that the people on the call see that's not on that list that we can add?
Sure.
To the master one that we're going to build. I just haven't put it in the chat box.
Yeah. So what Brian is saying is, if you look at all these sources of business, what else are you guys doing to garner business that might not be on this list? Because we can add to it, is what he's saying. So I don't know if, let me open this little box up here. Open. I don't see, if you want to type it in the questions or type it in the chat, that would be great. So if you do tend to look at if you are looking at this and you do see that there's something that we can add to it, please let us know. I don't see anything at this point, Brian. One of the things, though, that we want to talk about at this point, because I think it's very, very critical to understand what is a contact versus what is a lead. If you guys were in the first couple of classes that I did with your group, we talked about defining a contact and a lead and why that is so important. And the thing is that you have to figure out for you, whoops, let's see. Brian, can you check your email do you see that from Diane?
From Diane.
Let me just type her a yes. Sorry about that. She was trying to get onto the webinar today, so I just want to make sure she's got it. So what I want to do is I want to talk about the sources of business and what is a lead versus what is a contact. And like I said, we talked a little bit about that earlier. There are two types of tracking that you need to do. You need to look at where your business came from, but you also need to look at, are your contacts turning into leads, which are turning into appointments? Because there's a conversion ratio that we need to figure out, and that's what's going to help you grow your business in 2015. So for example, you may have all these contacts. You may have, let's just talk round numbers. You have 500 contacts in your sphere of influence, but those are simply just contacts that you have. Leads would be the people you can turn into an appointment. They're ready, willing, and able now or in 6 months from now, or you can label them to actually be a lead, which means you're going to garner an appointment from them. And that's very important because don't confuse your contacts with your leads. For example, in mortgages, a lead to Brian's team is somebody that either you talk to them and they're ready to purchase, ready to get a mortgage, or you pull credit on them. It's not somebody who just asks questions. Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's kind of a good example in mortgages. It's not me because I'm more of a contact.
We actually narrowed it down straight to a lead as a credit pull.
Okay.
Because that's truly I try to do it to where I want to make sure that I can quantify it. Mm-hmm. And it's very difficult on our side to quantify anything and systematize it across our whole organization for anything other than a credit pull.
Right.
I mean, up until that point, if somebody, and then basically what we do is at the end of the year, we take our closed loan volume and divide it by our credit pulls for the year. And then that gives us our conversion. We know we want to close X amount of loans. We need to pull this many credit reports, and that's like an activity that we can monitor daily.
Right, exactly.
Like a lot of the agents that we work with, they set it, they go the other direction, and on their end, they will do it based off of appointments where they know I need to run this many appointments to close this many deals, and then that's how they track their daily activities.
Right, because conversion rate, what Brian's talking about is your conversion rate. And so what you want to do is find out, okay, if you want to have, and I'm, again, going to use raw numbers, and we'll take a look at a form in just a minute, but if you want to have 10 closings this year, say 12, one a month, so you want to have 12 closings, you need to figure out how many appointments you need to get to those 12 closings. You need to figure out how many phone calls it takes, how many contacts it takes, how many sources of business it takes, what are your highest sources of business. So there's a lot of work that goes into this, but once you hit that final number, setting your goals is super easy. So that's why we're spending so much time on this right now. So this is your source of business, and thank you guys. I see a few sign calls, newsletters, Zillow leads, e-cards, etc. So thank you so much for sending that in. It's great to add to our source of business. Now let's look at the next slide, which is kind of a 2014 performance review, and this is kind of what Brian was talking about. You want to look at what was your closed transactions, the number of properties sold, and then that is your average sales price. Okay, because you may have a $500,000, you may have a $50,000. So you're trying to find your average sales price, which will help you do your income. And then there's a form for your average earned commission. So total commission, number of listings, number of sales, plus, and then divide it by that to get your commission per transaction. What that will do then is to help you set your financial goals. So here is your 2015 income goals. Your income goal is blank. Last year it was 100,000. This year you want it to be 200,000. So based on your average commission per transaction last year, how many transactions do you need to meet your financial goal for this year? Your percentage of closed sales last year. How many more listings do you need? How many more buying closings do you need? What do you need in tangible numbers to meet your goals for this year? And the reason why we focus on the financial is because that's an easy thing to track. We know that it's not necessarily closed transactions, it's average commissions and average sales. Does that make sense to everybody, I hope? So here's a chart to fill out with use for your income goals. And again, Brian and Karen are going to go through this in detail with you. This again is a high-level overview. So then we have a prospect calculator. Okay, so what this is, and again, this is very important to know your conversion ratio. Here, what they're talking about is the number of closings desired in 2015. So you've now set that. Based on the forms that we did before, you've now set that. You have a times 25. What they're saying is you have a 25% conversion ratio. Out of 25 prospects, you will get one closing.
It's saying 1 out of 4, basically, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, that's correct. Yep. And so what
and this will be different for everybody.
It will be.
The one thing about, yeah, and the one thing I think is important on this, and I think that's why you really got to hone in and be very specific on what you consider to be a lead, and be honest with yourself, because I think when we do it that way, it's a lot less discouraging, because if somebody told me I had to talk to 20 people to close one loan, I would pound my head against the wall. But since the more that we can really refine that down, it can help. It's a lot more easily to not only to monitor but also to attain.
Exactly. And I think too is that what's helpful is knowing your true conversion ratio, because it's not necessarily a 20 to 1 or 25 to 1. You know, people who are, depending on their personality traits, etc., and depending on the types of business that they are working on, the types of leads that they're working on, hot leads or more cold calls, etc., your conversion rate could be a lot higher. So don't let this become a discouraging task. This is actually supposed to be very encouraging. So please don't.
And that's why I think appointments is a very good activity to track, because off of that you'll know how many appointments you need to have for a closing.
Yes.
We used to do something with phone calls, and then where I would have requirements in place of how many agents they would need to talk to in a week, or how many clients. And then what was happening is, the guys were subconsciously cheating the system, because they want to make sure that they're hitting their front end numbers, but by doing that, it's compromising the whole process. Like they would put they had a great conversation with the same realtor 4 days in a row. Well, if an agent is calling, asking about an appraisal, a title, whatever, that's not a great conversation. That's just an update on a file.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we always stress, one, you got to identify what is the metric that we're going to track, and then make sure that it's clear, make sure we can quantify it, and make sure that we're honest about it.
Right. Exactly. Because if you do, if you're, and I hate to say this, but if you are not being honest with some of this stuff, it's really going to make your job harder, and then you're going to question why you're not achieving your goals. And this is really, I mean, you're kind of holding up a mirror to yourself, is what I did in 2014, where I want to be in 2015. And sometimes it's hard to look in that mirror. But again, this whole process should make achieving your 2015 goals much easier. So what I do like about this market leader business plan is it actually shows the number of prospects needed daily. That's what I really like about this, because for the people who need to set their daily goals or take their big goals and chunk them out so that they're more readily attained, this actually shows exactly what you need to do every day. So therefore, when you're blocking on your calendar, from this time, from 10 to noon, I need to make at minimum 20 phone calls, or whatever it is, whatever that number is. It actually shows you every day, every week, every month what you need to do to achieve your goals. And I think that's very obtainable for people, where if I have to look over 365 days, I get very overwhelmed. The second part of this Market Leader Business Plan shows how to identify your strengths. We did talk about this. This is actually your behavioral style, and it gives kind of a high level of what the DISC is. But again, I would refer to the DISC, because this is, I can just write on here whatever I want. Again, what I thought was my S is really not what my S is, and so you want to be careful when you're using that. It does talk about the 4 behavioral styles here. Again, decisive. Here's the words that described you. Your notable traits. Considerations for your business plan. We've already kind of done this in a high-level overview. This digs it deeper. This will actually help you to stick to the system for an entire year. So make sure that you're paying attention to this. Again, it goes into interactive, the stability, the cautious. So it goes into all of that as well. Most of you have probably heard a SMART and realistic plan. And so what you want to do is look at leveraging your skill set to come up with the daily, weekly, and monthly goals that will lead to the closed transactions, which in this is what we are going to track in real estate, because really that's the most important to us. So what are the 2 areas that you're going to focus on? Lead gen and communication. Leads, again, being what's turning into appointments, not just contacts. I got a lot of contacts, but those don't necessarily turn into appointments. And where must you devote your time? And then here is target markets. So I know that some of you guys gave me additional to add to our business sphere. Here's some additional target markets that you can look at. Neighborhood farming, FSBOs, expired listings, empty nesters, renters to first-time home buyers. One of the people that I've worked with in the past, her focus was on first-time home sellers. I thought that was pretty cool because first-time home buyer, yeah, everybody targets them. They're fun to work with. But first-time home seller, that's kind of a market that's untapped, and that would be a neat one to get into. So look at the markets that you work well with and can communicate with throughout the year. Don't forget to include the ones
That
that you
market
work with.
also right now, Julie, is absolutely hemorrhaging because a lot of these folks are people that bought houses back in 2009 when they were getting their $8,000.
Yeah.
And now that the market's turned a little bit, you know, they started families and stuff like that. So that's probably, literally within the past 4 months, we started to see that, get the phone calls from those people that we did, you know, 3-4 years ago, that they have equity in their house. When I say equity, I mean basically enough to sell it, get out of it, and put money down on their next house. And then the other thing is that with where rates are now versus then, they're literally getting, you know, an extra $10,000, $15,000 worth of house for relatively the same payment. So
Exactly.
I think that is a huge untapped market right now.
It is. It truly is. And you guys probably know this better than I do, but what is the average number of years people stay in their house?
The last one that we had, it was less than, it was like 6.87 or something like that, which is, you know, we always laugh about it when people are always, you know, talking about the 30-year loan program, but it's less than 7 years of the last study that we had. I actually requested, we had a presentation yesterday at our sales meeting, and he had discussed that, and I had actually requested that information from a couple different sources to compare them to see, you know, what I'm getting one from NAR. I'm also getting one from our coaching firm.
Yeah, so I mean that again, it's an untapped market. Think outside the box. Look at this list and say, okay, what else can I tap? What other focus is there? What isn't everybody else doing that I can hone in on? And that's where this creation of the first-time home sellers was brought up, and I thought, God, that's brilliant. I mean, it's just those little conversations that you have with people that bring stuff out like that. I mean, that's totally brilliant. I think it's great. So again,
well, then too, you go back to the database where what was the number, like 87% of people use a different realtor because
yeah,
you know, the agent doesn't stay in front of them.
doesn't stay top of mind. Yep,
yeah.
Exactly. Well, and okay, so I'm just going to do a little plug here too, because Brian, you said that you guys are getting a lot of calls from the people that you've done the loans for. That's why it's really good to have a tight relationship with other people in your field, whether it's a lender, whether it's a relocation person, whether it's an apartment, you know, manager, no matter what it is, it's good to have that tight relationship with those people as well, because the referral works both ways. I mean, it's a very reciprocal relationship. So,
right.
Okay, so again, don't forget to look at the markets that you're going to communicate with. And then, of course, lead gen, this talks about creating an item of value. You guys can look at this. What would be the item of value for the interest in your market? Again, it's just helping you stay top of mind. I did want to just blush on communication a little bit. I know it's easy to rifle off an email. I know that, but I mean, it's free, it's easy, it's, you know, you can rifle off an email. But the problem is it's very low touch. And that's why when we're talking about contacts and leads, we're not talking about emails, because that's just, everybody does that. You need to do something else well. An email is great for new leads, but it's not like in your face asking for the business, so you may stay in front of them, but it is really it's very low touch, and you want to be careful that you're not communicating only by email. Communicating by phone is very high touch. I was laughing the other day because I am coming back around in a full circle. Okay, remember before texting, again, I'm aging myself, I apologize, but before texting, before emailing even, you actually picked up the phone and you dialed it. Like, you didn't even touch it, you actually dialed it. And you talked to somebody on the phone, and if they weren't home, you didn't talk to them and they called you back. Well, now, I don't know if you guys can hear it, but my phone keeps going off, and it's like texts and a phone call and all this other stuff. It's almost like now with texting, going back to a phone call being like a more immediate way to get a hold of somebody, because texting, it's sometimes there are days where it's hard to even keep up with that. And so I think that calling somebody, picking up the phone and calling somebody is really a nice touch. Not only high touch, but it's also a very nice touch. Plus, people usually respond by answering the phone. So. Communicating by print or by mail, it's harder to ignore than email. It's customizable. You can retain the information for future dates. It's easy to get a farm area to send information to through like a mail service, etc. And this is a good way to show people in a certain market what's going on as far as homes that you sold. You're the neighborhood expert. What's going on? Free home avail, all of that stuff. So it's pretty easy to do that. With past clients too, they already know you, so they'll pay more attention to your mail when they get it. Communicating by social media is huge. I can't stress it enough. It's not the only way that you're going to find clients, but it's a nice way to stay in front of them and keep in touch with them. It's pretty much free unless you generate paid ads and you have a very, very wide reach. So that's always good. Again, they're going to pay more attention to your posts, your tweets, your messages, your events, etc., and you can always drive it back to your website or whatever, just to stay top of mind, because as Brian said, you know, so many people don't use the same real estate agent because they don't remember them and they don't stay top of mind. That's again a market that you need to just jump on. So looking at the next year, what's your target market? What's your communication channels? What's the best way to communicate with them? What's the most effective way to communicate with them? And then it talks about communication frequency, excuse me. How often should you be contacting them? Of course, new leads, you want to email them immediately, but you don't want to scare them off by sending them a message every hour either. That's kind of creepy, so you don't want to do that. But again, you do want to stay top of mind with people. The other thing that I wanted to show you was on here, starting on page 25, you're going to see all these charts. And these are some of the charts that they referred to earlier, the production analysis chart. Where does your production come from? And then also, where did it come from in 2014? Keep track of this. Keep it in a notebook. Keep it on your iPad. Keep it on your computer. Turn it into a PDF. I don't care what, but track this.
Julie, when we do our next, what I'd like to do is, for those that are that want to follow a plan like this, what I'd like to do is when we do our next call next week, when we go through Google Docs, have these set up.
Yeah, we can do that. Absolutely.
Yeah, we can create, I think we can create like a template so they can each have this in their Google Doc, and if they're going to use that for their database, they can have all these forms and trackers in there loaded, ready to go.
Yeah, I can do that. That's easy to convert.
If they need to export it in or out of CB Works or whatever, they'll have access to that, and it's free. You know?
Yep, yeah, it is, and I can't stress enough that if you track starting in January, and you start tracking now, your goal setting at the end of 2015 will be so much easier than having to go back and pull reports and figure this out and figure that out. If you start now tracking this stuff, even if you didn't do it last year, that's fine. But if you start now, this year and the next year are going to be just stellar years for you. So I'm happy to do that. We'll convert these into some Google Docs. Again, here's your projected income goals. My income goal, average commission, divide that, sales, divide that, and here's how many closings you need. Prospect calculator, again, a little tongue-in-cheek because you want to make sure that your sale ratio or conversion ratio is actually for you, but it does show you the number of prospects needed daily. Plan prep. What tools and resources do you have today that you can use to build and sustain your business? So here's what I use today. Here's what I promise to use. And I think that Brian and Karen will be going over some of this. Some of this is really like personal handwritten notes, huge. If you don't use it, start using them. people don't use them. You know, I have to tell you that a year ago, right before Christmas, so not this last Christmas, but the year ago before Christmas, my aunt passed away, and very suddenly, and it was very sad. But my point in telling you this is she was notorious throughout, she was legendary from her, through her church, through my family, through all of her sphere of influence, her friends, for writing notes. And as she got older, the handwriting got worse, et cetera, et cetera. But you know what? Looking back over this past year when we came upon the anniversary of her passing, man, I still have the notes she's written. And I know that sounds quirky, and how can you apply it to business? My point is that it's something people don't do. So it helps you stand out from the rest. So again, look at what you're using today, what you will use, make a commitment to build a bigger, better business in 2015. Marketing checklist. How are you going to meet and connect with people? What are your interactive lead gen activities? What are you going to do to develop your brand, build your business, etc.? This, I think, is really important. Everybody needs to know what their marketing budget is. It will be different for everybody, okay? It simply will be different for everybody, but it's very important that you figure this out. You don't want to be in the red the whole year trying to make that up. That causes a lot of stress for people, so you want to know what's realistic for your marketing budget. They break it down by quarter. I think that's a great way to do it. Marketing calendar. What are you going to do in January? What are you going to do in February? Tie this back to the number of leads that you need, the number of appointments you have to have, which translates to the number of closings. This and the next page, I think, are huge. I'm going to actually go to the next page. This is the daily activity tracker. I will put this on Google Docs, but man, you really need to get this to where you have this and you're using it every day. Your daily activity tracker. How many open houses? How many appointments did you get from it? How much time did you spend on it? How many dollars did you spend on it? Number of listings, number of sales. This will actually help you. If you didn't track before, this will actually help you track what you're doing in your business today that will help you reach your goals for tomorrow. So this is a daily activity tracker, which also then translates to a weekly activity tracker. Again, take your goal, break it into small chunks, and do it daily, do it weekly, then look at monthly, and then look at quarterly, and then look at annual. So you're not looking at 365 days and freaking out. We don't want that to happen either. So again, we'll put these on Google Docs, but I think that these are really good. And then here is just a quick reference. What I suggest, this is my own personal suggestion, I have to keep my goals in front of me all the time. Like I literally need them in front of me. If you saw, I should take a picture sometime in my office, but I have my goals on a little Post-it, and it's put right on at the beginning of the year. It's put right on my monitor. And so I look at that every single day. And when I'm doing tasks, when I'm working towards something, when I find myself on an activity that is just like busy work, I look at my goals and I say, is this one of my things that's helping me achieve my goal? And if it's not, it goes to the back burner, whether it's exciting and I want to do it or not. So take your quick reference, keep it in front of you, continue to work towards your goals. Make sure you get together with Brian and Karen and get this drilled in. I think that this is going to be your year. So I think that's all I had. I know that's just a ton of information that we got in 55 minutes. Any questions, anything you guys have before we end the session today? Brian, anything else that you want to add?
No, I think like you said, it is an absolute ton of information, and that's why we want to, break to accurately fill this thing out. I think it would honestly take a couple hours.
Oh yeah.
So I think it's you got to take a bite of an elephant one at a time. So we'll just take our time and go through it when we sit down, in person and go through it. I think it's that these are just great tools. I know some folks have already mentioned that they have pretty detailed plans, so we're excited to see that and share that. But I mean, every piece of economic data that we've seen had everybody's predicting big things in 2015, so we just want to make sure that we capitalize on everybody as the best year that they're capable of.
Agreed. And don't get overwhelmed, y'all. Do not get overwhelmed. Don't look at 365. Look at 1. And if that's overwhelming, look at an hour. Look at 30 minutes. Honestly, I know that sounds a little sarcastic, but it truly, truly isn't. This is not meant for you to get overwhelmed. And Kristen, you asked if you will get a copy of the full plan. Absolutely. I'm going to be following this up with not only the recording of the class, so y'all can listen to it again. I'm going to be sending out my PowerPoint with just kind of the high level of the DISC. I'm going to be sending the DISC link, and I also will be sending the Market Leader Business Plan. So all of that will be coming to you. Barring I don't have any techno issues, you will have that today yet. So perfect. Well, thank you. Oh, Rebecca, do we print this out to bring to our meeting? Brian, you'd be better off answering that.
It would be great if you could. That way we can go through it. Even in our meeting, I think we'll go through it in depth, but the majority of it we're going to want to fill out. You'll be filling out, at home or office or whatever.
Yeah, and I think too that the sooner you get started on this or some type of plan, the sooner you get started on it. I mean, we're very early in the year, guys, so the sooner you get started on doing this, the sooner you'll be able to meet your goals and achieve your goals and hopefully surpass your goals. So I would.
And I can't. Just out of curiosity, does everybody see value in this? Is this good content? Is this something that we're all comfortable working on? Is it too overwhelming? I'm just kind of looking for feedback on the actual plan.
Let's see here. I'm not seeing anybody chiming in on that, but again, that's why I'm saying is don't look at it as an all or nothing prospect either. Okay, if you can just implement a few of these things for 2015, you're doing great. And don't let it get overwhelming for you. Brian and Karen will go through this with you one-on-one. And, that's why we're here. That's why Brian and I are here. That's why you've got great leaders in your organization to help you meet your needs meet your goals. So. Perfect. Well, everybody, thank you very much. Again, look for this stuff coming to your email box soon. If you do have any questions, of course, I'm always available via email or phone. And Brian, I know you and Karen look forward to meeting with everybody to get their goals set and get everybody rocking and rolling in 2015.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Julie.
You're welcome. And everybody stay warm, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.